I still remember the exact moment it happened. It wasn't dramatic. No ambulance. No pain. No collapse. It was quiet. I was in the kitchen early in the morning, like always. My coffee was brewing. Duke, my old dog, was snoring at my feet. And then, buzz. Just a little vibration from my watch. I looked down. The screen read, possible atrial fibrillation detected. And I froze. I had no pain. No shortness of breath. But in that still moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Fear. Not the kind that screams. But the kind that whispers. What if your heart is lying to you? What if something is wrong, and you have no idea? I stood there, staring at that tiny screen. And for the first time in a long time, I realized. I had no idea what my heart was doing. I'd been alive for 76 years. I'd taught American history, raised 2 kids, and survived a heart attack. But somehow, I never learned to listen to my own body. Not really. That morning, I made a decision. Before my next coffee gets cold, I will learn how to scan, understand, and protect my heart. Not at the hospital. Not in an emergency room. Right here, at home. So if you're like me, over 60, still active, still living, but unsure what's happening inside, come with me. Let's learn how to listen to our hearts, before they have to scream to get our attention. You know what's strange? Looking back now, the signs were there. They were small, easy to miss. A short breath going up the stairs. A flutter in the chest while lying down. A light-headed moment when I stood up too fast. But I always had a reason. Oh, it's just age. Oh, I skipped lunch. Oh, I didn't sleep well last night. Excuses. Tiny, harmless excuses. Until they weren't harmless anymore. For months, I'd been living with something I couldn't name. I thought I was just getting older. Slower. Tired. I joked with my daughter that by 80, I'd need training wheels. She laughed. And I laughed, too. But inside, I was uneasy. There was a silence I couldn't explain. A kind of rhythm inside me that didn't feel steady. Still, I never brought it up. Not to my doctor. Not to my family. Because there was no pain. And when there's no pain, you tell yourself you're fine. But I wasn't. That morning, when the watch gave its quiet warning, I felt something deeper than worry. I felt shame. Not because I was sick, but because I had ignored my body for so long. And that's what scared me the most. That I had been walking around with a silent risk, while thinking I was in control. That night, I didn't sleep. Not a minute. Not because I was in pain. But because, for the first time in a long time, I was fully awake, on the inside. You see, the scariest part of getting older isn't the gray hairs. Or the slower steps. Or even the pills on the kitchen counter. It's the silence. The silence of something going wrong. And you don't know it. I kept replaying it in my head. That tiny vibration on my wrist. That scream. That phrase. Possible AFib detected. I'd laughed off so many signs. I'd chalked it up to age, weather, and bad sleep. But deep down, I knew I had been pushing the truth aside. And that night, sitting alone in the quiet of my living room, I asked myself something I'd never dared to ask before. What if I'm not okay? And what scared me even more was the idea that I could go on not knowing. I got up, made tea, sat by the window, and I searched. How do you check your heart rhythm, at home? No hospital. No wires. No machines that beep. Just me. Just my heart. And something simple. That's when I found it. A tiny, sleek device. Portable. No bigger than my thumb. A heart monitor that could scan me in 30 seconds. I watched a video demo. They made it look easy. You touch it with 2 fingers. It listens. It records. It shows your heart rhythm on your phone. No pain. No fuss. Just the truth. But I didn't order it right away. I stared at that screen for maybe 15 minutes. Thinking. Not about price. Not about the brand. But about one thing. Am I ready to know what it might say? There's a strange fear in that moment. A kind of pause. Because once you know, you can't unknown. I thought of my friend Carl. He ignored chest pain for weeks. When he finally saw a doctor, it was too late. And I remember what he told me at the hospital. I wish I had listened earlier. I closed my eyes. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't pray for health. I prayed for clarity. I told myself, if there's something wrong, I want to face it with my eyes open. Because maybe, the real danger isn't what the monitor might find. But what might I miss if I never try? And so, sometime around 4 a.m., with the sky still dark, and the tea long gone cold, I pressed the order button. Not out of fear, but out of hope. Because I realized, I'd rather know than live in the dark. Even if the truth is hard. Even if the numbers aren't perfect. Because this is my heart. And it's time I started listening. It's strange. You can live 76 years and still not understand your own body. I thought I did. I thought I was doing okay. I walked Duke. I made breakfast. I even played cards with my buddies every Friday night. But all of that was happening on the outside. Inside, I was guessing. Guessing when it came to my energy. Guessing when it came to my breath. And now, guessing about my heart. That night I ordered the monitor. I felt proud. I thought I'd taken control. But the next morning, staring at my coffee, I realized I had no idea what to do with it. How would I even know what normal looked like? What if I saw a line that didn't look right? What if I made it worse just by looking? That feeling, it hit me like a brick. I didn't just need a device. I needed understanding. So I did what I haven't done in a while. I went to the library. They have computers there. And better chairs. And I searched, what is atrial fibrillation? Best way to track heart rhythm. Is home ECG reliable? And again, I kept running into the same name. Dr. Eric Topol. At first, I thought, this guy's everywhere. But then, I leaned in. I watched his TED Talk. I read an article where he said, the smartphone will become the most powerful diagnostic tool in medicine. That sentence stayed with me. He wasn't just throwing buzzwords. He had data. Case studies. Years of trial, error, and approval. He wasn't saying tech replaces doctors. He was saying, patients should be part of the process. Not passive, but aware. That made me sit up straighter. Because all my life, I'd been the kind of patient who just said, yes, document. Took the pills. Nodded during the checkup. Left the clinic and never thought twice. But this man, this cardiologist I'd never met. He made me feel like I could be a student of my own body. I kept digging. He talked about how over 30 million people worldwide had undiagnosed AFib. Most strokes from AFib happen in people who didn't even know they had it. And how a simple 30-second scan at home, could mean the difference between a second chance and a second stroke. It was a thunderclap. Suddenly, I wasn't just a man with a monitor. I was a man with a mission. And so, I took notes. Old school, pen and paper. I listed symptoms, triggers, and risk factors. I downloaded a heart tracker. Set reminders on my phone, not alarms, just nudges. The first time I scanned, I was nervous. What if I saw something wrong? What if I panicked? But when the results came in, and it read, normal sinus rhythm, I felt tears build up in my eyes. Not because I was safe, but because I finally understood what I was seeing. That scan. That tiny graph on my phone. It was a conversation between my heart and me. And for the first time in my life, I was finally listening. I didn't wake up as a new man. Let's get that straight. I still creaked getting out of bed. My knees still made that funny sound when I bent down to grab my slippers. But something had shifted. Not outside, but inside. The morning after I read Dr. Topol's work, I reached for that little heart scanner before I even reached for my toothbrush. I stood there in the kitchen, half asleep, fingers pressed against it. I felt ridiculous. It beeped once. Then it listened. I didn't know what I was doing, not really. But I did it anyway. That was day 1. On day 2, I did it again. On day 3, I scanned while my coffee brewed. By day 4, I found myself looking forward to that quiet 30 seconds. Just me. My heart. And the gentle hum of the kettle in the background. It wasn't a dramatic routine. It didn't look impressive. But for the first time in a long time, I was checking in with myself. After a week, I made myself a simple log on paper. Date. Time. Rhythm. Notes on how I felt. Nothing fancy. Just something I could look at and say, this is how I've been. No guessing. No forgetting. Some days I felt fine. Other days, I'd see irregular beats after a bad night's sleep. Or after too much coffee. Or when I had argued with my daughter about something silly. Suddenly, the patterns began to speak. My heart wasn't just a mystery anymore. It was a mirror. That changed something in me. Because now, when I felt that flutter, when my chest felt just a little strange, I didn't panic. I opened my notebook. I traced back. I compared. I learned. You see, when you know your pattern, you stop fearing every blip. You don't feel lost when things shift. You understand. And understanding, that's power. Not dramatic power. But the quiet kind. The kind that builds confidence one heartbeat at a time. A funny thing happened in week 2. My blood pressure dropped. 10 points lower than it had been in months. And I hadn't added any new medication. I just started paying attention. Started respecting my rhythm. I wasn't trying to fix my heart. I wasn't chasing perfection. I was simply showing up for it. Every morning. For 30 seconds. That was all. It felt honest. Like keeping a promise to myself. And not just about my heart. About my whole life. Because if I could listen to this little pulse, maybe I could listen better in other parts of life too, to my breath, to my mind, to the people I love. That's when I thought, maybe someone else out there needs this too. Not just the scan. But the act. The pause. The check-in. So I made a little tracker. Same format I used. Easy to print. Easy to write on. You can find it in the description. It's not a program. It's not a challenge. There's no rule. No finish line. It's just a place to start a conversation. Between you and your heart. If you've never done that before, don't worry. Neither had I. Not until I had to. Not until I realized that sometimes, the smallest act, like placing 2 fingers on a device, can lead to the biggest change, finally, learning to listen. There's a kind of moment in life that doesn't make noise. It doesn't crash like thunder. It doesn't break like glass. It just arrives. Soft. Quiet. Like a truth that's always been there, waiting. For me, that moment came a few weeks into my daily check-ins. One morning, after scanning my heart like I always do, I sat down in my chair by the window. The sun was rising slowly. My coffee was warm. And something in me just cracked open. I started crying. Not sobbing. Not sadness. Just tears that had been waiting. Waiting for permission. Waiting for space. And I realized something I had never dared to say before. I had ignored my own heart. For decades. Not just the muscle. Not just the beats. But the feelings. The fatigue I called aging. The shortness of breath I blamed on the weather. The ache I pretended not to feel when I thought about my wife's passing. You see, the heart doesn't just carry blood. It carries memory. It carries sorrow. It carries moments we didn't let ourselves feel when they happened. All those years, I let life keep moving. Work. Bills. Kids. Appointments. And my heart. It kept beating. Patiently. Quietly. Never asking for anything in return. Until that day. I remember placing 2 fingers on the monitor that morning. And for the first time, it didn't feel like a scan. It felt like holding someone's hand. And suddenly, my heart wasn't a threat. It wasn't a problem. It was a friend. A companion I'd left behind in the noise of life. How many times had it tried to warn me? To slow down. To breathe deeper. To feel the things I was too busy to feel. I thought back to the day I took my daughter to college. I waved goodbye, held the wheel tight the whole ride home. That night, I couldn't sleep. My chest felt tight. I told myself it was the chili. But now I know. It was grief I didn't allow. And my heart. It felt it, long before I did. I thought back to the nights I stayed up when my wife was sick. She couldn't sleep, so I couldn't sleep. And my heart, night after night, took on the load of love and fear and helplessness. Never complaining. Just enduring. I used to think bravery was silence. But now I believe bravery is listening. And listening to my heart has been the bravest thing I've done in years. Not because it's dramatic. Not because it's heroic. But because it's honest. Honest enough to sit with what I'd buried. Honest enough to say, you've been carrying me all these years. Now let me carry you. There are still mornings I feel afraid. Still, days I feel unsure. Still moments when the monitor reads something unusual. And my stomach drops like it used to. But the difference now is, I don't turn away. I don't rush to hide it. I breathe. I observe. And I say, I see you. I hear you. I'm with you. Because that's the relationship I never knew I needed. A relationship with my heartbeat. So here we are. Not at the end, really. But at a kind of beginning I never expected. Not long ago, I was just like you. I took my heart for granted. I let stress slip past, let fatigue build up. And I told myself, I'm fine. But one quiet morning, that illusion broke. A scan. A doctor's face. And a sentence I'll never forget. You've been walking with a ticking clock. That moment changed me. But not overnight. I didn't become wise, I became curious. And that curiosity brought me to something so simple. You can hold it in your hand. A device that listens to the language of the heart. Now, each morning, I scan. Not just my ECG. But my choices. My breathing. My presence. And each night, before bed, I sit quietly and ask one question. Did I honor my heart today? That's it. No shame. No guilt. Just listening. If this story meant something to you, not as a lesson, but as a mirror, then maybe you're already on the same path I found. A path of small awareness, quiet turns, and second chances. I've left a heart log below. Print it. Or just copy the questions into a notebook. Use it as a soft ritual. A moment each day to tune in before the world gets loud. And if you want to walk with others who are doing the same, you're welcome to join our little corner of the internet. Not for motivation. Not for likes. Just to not feel so alone in this. I don't chase subscribers. But if you ever return, I'll still be here. Same old porch. Same cup of black coffee. Still telling stories, quiet ones. True ones. Ones that may one day find their way to the person you were meant to become. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, share this with them. Not to impress. Not to teach. Just to say, I care about you. And I thought you might want to hear this. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, place your hand on your chest. Feel that rhythm. That's your story. Still being written. Still worth protecting. And if this video helped you remember that, then I've done my part.